Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karamavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu Vishamavahai Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay. So, in the last verse, after the disciple has submitted himself totally to his chosen Shrotriya Brahmanishta Guru, the Guru has given him the assurance and has said, "Fear not, my child. In reality, there is no death for thee. There is a means for crossing the ocean of relative existence and attaining immortality of the supreme bliss. Amritatpasya samprapto paramananda bhojane. I shall teach thee now Brahma Vidya. Hear with rapt attention. Brahma Vidya Vimam Shuru." So these students are all supposed to hear with rapt attention. The preceptor takes over and gives a long discourse on the nature of Brahman, which will not end today, which will continue for one or two more sessions, maybe one. Guru Uvacha. Anadi Antaya Shantaya Shuddha Atma Prakashini Adi Acharyaya Nirdhuta Kalmashaya Vikarini Adesha Kala Kamaya Satchidananda Rupine Akhanda Shashwata Sreshta Nirguna Brahmane Namaha. Salutation to Satchidananda Parabrahman, that glorious first preceptor, which is self-luminous, eternal, indivisible, pure, spotless, desireless, attributeless, timeless, spaceless, changeless, beginningless, and endless. If his memory does not fail him, this was included in the first ever session given to few sadhakas in May 2011, in which the purpose of human birth and sadhana chatushtaya both were combined and given in capsule. Because at that time, he was more in a hurry. And to whom he had started, their accepting him was sure. So he had to reach to the Brahma Vidya sessions, such as Satyanyana Anantam Brahma, Purna, very soon. So you imagine Sadhana Chatushtaya itself took you 2 sessions in the current scenario. In that he took this. Why he took this, we will come to know as we proceed. Krishnanandji Maharaj's commentary would be read out as it is. Any further pour from him would be in addition. Much of that would be in addition, and that would be mentioned accordingly. Self-luminous. We start from where we left in Ashtavakra Gita, last pour. Prakashayam Eko. Maharaj writes, the promptings of the innermost light of the self alone are responsible for the spiritual progress of the individual. Even seeking a preceptor will be impossible if the permanent self within does not throw the discriminative consciousness upon the individual or the jiva. Unquote. The self-luminous part was elaborately and yet very profoundly dealt with the last pour on the Ashtavakra Gita. Relevant part from the AV Gita pour is worth a recap, a small part. We knew Brahman is Jnana, one of the nature given for Brahman in Satyam Jnanam Anantam. This Jnanam, we said, graces itself to flow through each and every aspect of creation. And human beings with the subtle body, intellect, are able to absorb it, go to the Trishya Viveka, Aham Kriti, and avail this Jnanam grace to them. And when they further exist in the creation, all their subsequent objective knowledge, this is objectless awareness which has been graced to them. This objectless awareness is the same thing which graces them for their further objective knowledge of A, B, C, D, E, X, Y, Z. Whatever they perceive, whatever they know, everything is graced by that objectless awareness, graced by Brahman, the universal consciousness. So, to any knowledge, he said, knowledge of job, knowledge of science, knowledge of astronomy, physics, mathematics, family, friends, enemies, God, even God with form, object of worship, knowledge of sun, moon, stars, etc., etc., etc. Only the objects after the prefix knowledge of, they keep on changing. The knowledge of remains the change. Even the preposition of knowledge remains the same. Knowledge is the same. Like we say, I like them, I went there, I ate there, I slept there, I prayed there, I went to and the I remains the same. No matter what follows after the I. Okay, so illumining, if taken in that sense, there is no duality between the supreme illuminator and the further illumining of the creation for the illuminated jiva, because the source knowledge, the source illumination is the same. The source is the same, jnana. So let the mind not get into the illumining description objectively, correlating with sun, correlating with lights, floodlights, etc. The illumining part is the pure awareness. And the pure awareness and the knowledge within each jiva, with which they perceive every aspect of the creation. There is no difference between the knowledge per se, it is the same. As we understood that the pure awareness and the part in the object drawings is the same. There is no difference. There is no difference in the intensity. There is no difference in the wholesomeness. Absolutely not. So whatever we come to know in this world, our knowledge is the same as a pure awareness. So like Swami says, it depends on you how you turn the key outward or inward. How we use that knowledge, that changes the whole dimension of our karmas. Right? So this knowledge being the same, now Maharaj is saying the promptings of the innermost light of the self alone are responsible for the spiritual progress of the individual. The disciple, tortured, tormented, running and crying and falling at the feet of the Guru, is already illumined. Because it is the knowledge of his, we may say it is his knowledge that he requires self-realization. It is the knowledge that here is my Guru to whom I have to surrender. The knowledge that I have to walk through these several hundred kilometers, miles in those years, in the forest to reach the Guru's kutir. All this knowledge is the same knowledge, awareness. So he's already illumined. So while he might have been, he could have been bullied, he could have been asked to serve, he could have been taken for granted. Here the self-realized kutir, sage seated on the kutir, no matter even if one shishya comes or not, he is dwelling ever in that bliss of Brahman, existing as that Brahman itself, Satya. So here is the disciple falling at his feet, and here he is saying that if you do not have that innermost self prompt, even the prompting is not possible. Even your coming to me is not possible. Even your falling at my feet is not possible. Even my immediate spontaneous response that I will give you, Brahma Vidya, Mam Shunu, is not possible. Right? What an assurance. At the beginning stage, just he has finished the sadhana chatushtaya. What an assurance from a Brahmanishta Guru. Will the sadhaka not elevate to 50% realization at that particular moment when he said, even that promptings would not have been possible. Even my pouring and even the transmission of the Brahma Vidya and your absorption in the Nididhyasana is not possible at all if you are not illumined. Only the self can absorb the self. If we have not illumined at all, what will you do with your gross intellect? Will it ever take you to Brahma Vidya? Impossible. If any human beings, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, Ramana, ourselves, Shivananji Maharaj, they are realized Jivan Muktas, that itself is a Satya Pramanam, is a proof that every jiva is already self-illumined. If you are not illumined within, you will never discover this. What is self-realization? It is this discovering the illumined self within. Mano ya na mano. सच्चाई है. Say. Okay, one more. Further, he poured for few sadhakas, which is giving to you. I think only those few sadhakas will be here also. May not be anyone more. But anyway, take it. Okay, let me tell you in the context of, okay, me and me and another person who has come to take this satsang, or who are listening to satsang over it. Like, through the Ashtavakra Gita, through all the Shrutis, this thing, I have known that the Jnanam, pure awareness, and the Jnana with which I know everything, objective awareness, are the same. And hence there is no duality between me and Brahman, which I have to ultimately experience through Nididhyasana. And with this clarity, when I look upon other human beings, if ever I think that I am only self-illumined, and the other person who is listening to the poor is not self-illumined, it is wrong, fundamentally wrong. Why? Because, see, I know that I am self-illumined, and I am also able to get the glimpses of that self-awareness, or say a realized master ever exists as that pure awareness self only. It is his Sajasthiti. Only his BMI has to project itself like the zoom camera to take care of the worldly activities, even if it means they conduct in the ashram, like Amma does, or like Shivan Maharaj did, or Chinmaya did. They expanded the mission. Okay. So I am the pure subject self. And if ever the realized master will never make a mistake. That is why the self-realized master told that the innermost promptings of the self is only responsible for you to come to me and for me to teach you and for you to absorb. Take it for granted. But a half-cooked, intellectual, spiritually evolved so-called person thinks that the other person, I am the subject, pure self, and the other person who is listening is an object. It is a blunder mistake, because when I am looking at you in the same intensity, in the same parameter, in the same gap, exactly in the same way you are looking at me. So you have 100% right to think that you are the subject self and I am the object. Like that, every human being in the creation is subject. When it comes to himself, I am seeing you, when he says that he is a subject and you is the object. So let us expand from me, subject one, and object one, you. And you say to the other person, subject two, you are subject to, and he is the object two. And let us go to the subject infinity and object infinity to the end. The beauty is that in subject one, object one, subject two, subject 100,000, object 100,000, subject 1 trillion, object 1 trillion, the subject is the same, because everybody, when they have known that they are the self, they are not attributing that to their objective body. It is the self subject. So the subject is formless, attributeless. So in that sense, the subject is the same. The pure self is the same. So in the whole equation, if you put the subject outside the bracket and then within the bracket, object 1, object 2, object 3, and you suppose I eliminate all the objects. All the objects may go, only the subject remains. Understood? So as I am illumined, I have known that maybe due to the grace of my Acharya, I have known, with all the Ashtavakra Gita torrential pour, I have known that the Jnanam Brahman and the Jnanam with which I am able to perceive this creation, the Jnanam is the same exactly. There is no iota of difference. Brothers and sisters, it is true for every human being. Every human being does that. It is true for even non-living beings, but the non-living beings do not have a subtle body. They are grosser, so they are not able to understand, realize that. For those who are hearing this for the first time, it may be a little difficult, but if you really listen sincerely, it is not difficult. It is as practical as drinking a glass of water. In fact, there can be nothing more logical, nothing more practical than this. Clear? So, in effect, shall we conclude that there is no object, each one is already illumined. Each one is aware of anything in this creation because of the pure awareness, jnanam, which he or she verily is. And this is the eye of the eye, ear of the ear, speech of the speech, prana of the prana, described in the Kena Upanishad. The first eye is the pure jnana, Brahman, and the second eye described is the same awareness with which the eye is able to experience. Let us go back to the self-realization through devotion series of sessions held in the Southern Satsang. What happened? What we this thing? What we understood in the song Sai Om, Nayana, Nayana me Sai Om. Correct? Nayana, Nayana me Sai Om. Till the time I did not realize that I am the pure self, I was thinking this eye of my eye to be a physical eye looking and getting attracted to the objective world and drawing all the attraction to my mind and then taking up actions, thoughts and adding to my karma. When the Sai came near me, Krishna or Sai came near me and Sai entered me, and my eye got submerged in the Sai's eyes, the eye of the eye, Brahman. With that eye, I can only see the entire creation as Sai can see all are illumined. Divyatma Swarupalara. All are illumined. He knows their self-realized master. That is why instead of telling that serve me, wash my glass and prepare food for me and all those things, like a pseudo guru will tell, command, give, and try to keep this disciple always under his feet. The first ever sentence uttered by a Brahmanishta guru is that only the self-illumined self within you has brought you here. Only the self-illumined me is going to pour you, and only the self-illumined self is going to absorb, and only the self-illumined you, the pure self, is going to enter the Nididhyasana, ultimately to only discover that you are that illumined self ever. आधार तो मोक्ष प्राप्त हो गया यहीं पे शुरुआत में सही. Indivisible, undivided, Akhanda Ekarasa, for it is homogeneous and is without internal and external differentiation. There is no Swagata, Swajatya, Vijatya, Bheda. So it cannot be divided in any of these through any of these Bheda. Bheda is what? Difference. Should he get into detail or not? I think by now you should be clear about the three. If anyone, only those 4-5 of you are attending, you are not clear. If anyone is not clear, he can come back. So let us skip it. He had wanted to explain, but pure. Again, this pure was explained in the our Ashtavakra Gita, where he said, a human being is a mass of impurities and imperfections. He has many limitations, which keep him bound to the mortal world. Liberation becomes necessary because the self is caught in those impurities and does not find an escape. So for a jiva, it is necessary to take up sadhana and to ultimately listen carefully. For a jiva, it is necessary to take up sadhana and to ultimately attain self-realization and exist in samadhi, where he exists as Niranjana with all impurities gone forever. So his ultimate goal, ultimate state of existence, ultimate goal in this human birth is to rend asunder all the impurities and to go and to reach and to exist as pure what? As pure what? As pure Brahman. The goal is Brahman and the goal is purity. Purity is Brahman, Brahman is purity. Jiva has to start from impurity. He has to start from Delhi, cross Haridwar, cross Rishikesh, go Uttarkashi and stay there. Uttarkashi is ever there. The Ganges, Uttarkashi is ever there. It is changeless. It is ever pure. Already, ever. Okay. Spotless, desireless. It is untouched. Brahman is untouched by the diversifying Prakriti and is desireless. For it is the height of all perfection. It is the bhuma or the fullness of life. Does this even have to be explained? Now he's coming. Desire is all for jivas. It is not even necessary to explain that Brahman is desireless. It is as though Moksha Gita, while Shivananda Ji was pouring, for once he spontaneously understood the limitation of the jivas as full of desires. So, to set the goal for them, he just playfully gave an expression, Brahman is desireless, so that they know the milestone they have to reach. They know from where, full of desires, where they have to reach. Otherwise, there is not even necessity to say that Brahman is desireless. It is just a playful expression, if we may say so. Attributeless. It is attributeless for the positive and the negative natures react one another and get fused in it. Here is a conversation between Yajnavalkya and Sakalya or Sakalya. Which deity art thou in the eastern quarter? The sun. Where is the sun located? In the eyes. Where has the eye its locality? In colors. He said in the heart. For colors are produced by the heart. The heart, therefore, is the locality of all colors. Okay? In the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, you will find, then by what should he see whom? This clearly indicates that the Atma is not an object of perception. It is always the knowing subject. There is neither an agent nor an object of action nor an instrument. In the physical plane only, there are this seer, sight and seen. Bhagavan, Bhakta and Bhakti. Meditator and meditated and the meditation. But who can know the knower? How should one know him by whom he knows all? You could not see the seer of sight. You could not hear the hearer of hearing. You could not perceive the perceiver of perception. You could not know the knower of knowledge. It is to say that when the Krishna's eyes have completely pervaded your eyes, it is the Krishna's eyes which is the supreme, which is the all-pervading, which is in fullness. Your practical worldly eye, grosser eye, only has to lose its significance, lose its identity totally. Your intellect, your mind, your senses, your eyes, everything, they have to lose their identity totally so that the Krishna takes over, the self takes over, and you are verily the self within. And in the Nididhyasana, devoid of intellect, devoid of mind, devoid of body, devoid of senses, you are able to experience that subjective, get the subjective experience of the pure self. So, with your worldly eye, you cannot perceive or experience Krishna's eyes, Sai's eyes. Only when you let go your BMI, when you only let go everything which you have hitherto understood about yourself as what you are, then only the Krishna's eyes, the self takes over, and the self perceiver of perception, the self guides you to the pure self that you are. So, with this understanding, what we are deriving home, that necessarily Brahman is attributeless. Okay. Spaceless, timeless. Very few of you are going to get into the full depth of this because he has taken Moksha Gita. The first session was very fantastic because it is about the Guru and the Shishya, full of emotions, full of everything. But now we are coming to the actual secret because the Guru is describing the nature of Brahman. And when the nature of Brahman is described, he, at whatever state Swami has taken him, he cannot dilute it, he cannot make it lighter with anecdotes, with jokes and other things. And the nature of Brahman is nature of Brahman, it has to be given as such. Very few of you. And ultimately, the group of sincere sadhakas has come to very few only. And the very few, in that very few only, further limited few are going to get benefited. He cannot dilute the nature of Brahman to make it more easier, more palatable for you to take it as a 2-minute noodle. Not possible. It is spaceless and timeless for space. Now Maharaj's description. For space is a special mode of particularization in being, and time is closely connected with space. And Brahman or Satchitananda is without any particularization whatsoever. Space and time are individualized objectifications which are born of the self-limitation of a center of consciousness. Maharaj English is very tough. The Brahman, this Brahman has neither front nor behind, neither inner nor outer. It is a spaceless infinitude, which is the beneath and above, to the west and the east, to the south and the north. It is alone. It alone is this whole existence. Chandogya Upanishad. It is infinite on all sides. Spatiality is the admission of difference, which is detrimental to the rigorous non-duality of Brahman. In non-dual Brahman, space cannot creep in. Space gets duality. If two sadhakas are seated in one place, means there is a space in between. It creates a duality between them. In the non-dual Brahman, there cannot be any space coming in at all. So it is infinite everywhere. Swami says, I am to your right, to your left, to the top, the bottom, to front, to back, everywhere. What he is saying, he is not Satyasai, he is saying the self is everywhere, in you, around you, above you, below you, infinite. Infinite self. Definitely it cannot be bound by time space. No, not possible. Can you say that Brahman existed at 7 a.m. in the morning and it did not exist at 7 p.m. in the evening? Or Brahman existed in such and such year? Brahman. It is absolute stupidity to bring in time and space and in the understanding and the Vidyasana on Brahman, which you really are, verily are. Brahman is there, and that which is there is here. Katha Upanishad. As a unity alone is this to be known, this immeasurable, eternal being. He goes after death, to death after death, who perceives duality here. Whosoever is not able to absorb and realize this Brahman obviously has to be dying and being born again and again, because only at the self attainment of self-realization, discovery of the self within, your sanchita karmas are roasted, become ineffective like roasted seeds. Otherwise, unless and until you have not understood and realized Brahman, he goes from death to death. Who perceives duality here, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Time too is denied in Brahman. That which is past, present, and future, and that which transcends this threefold distinction of time, is the indestructible O, the All, which is Brahman, Mandukya Upanishad. Brahman is Anadi and Ananta, of infinite duration, which is timelessness. Over that bridge, which is the Atman, neither day nor night nor old age nor death can cross. Chandogya Upanishad. Changeless, beginningless, endless. Hence, the changeless reality, which is ever self-satisfied, is beginningless and endless. When we have taken out the time-space causation concept from the nature of Brahman, it has become Anadi, Anant. Okay? Beginningless, endless, because Maharaj says that with the wholeness of its nature, it cannot have motion in itself. And therefore an inexplicable being which is hard even to imagine, Brahman. Brahman cannot be imagined. Brahman cannot be described. Brahman cannot be thought of. Yesterday, in a small spontaneous pour over telephone to a sadhaka while he was driving to office, he said, he quoted from an Ashtavakra Gita, this thing commentary of Chinya, which is going to come much, much later, towards the 14th or the 15th chapter. Now we are in the second chapter. It says 3, 4, 5, 6 sadhakas absorb carefully. One has already absorbed, who got yesterday. Any thought of anything in this creation obviously attributes a form to whatever is being thought. You think of your childhood friends, you think of your village, you think of the river flowing on the sides of your village. You think of the school, you think of the college, you think of your friends, you think of the relations, you think, anything, even Bhagavan Shri Satya Sai Baba. Anything you start thinking, you make it, you necessarily, your mind attributes a form to it. Think of anything. Still, till you reach a very advanced stage in spiritual sadhana, even if you think of your guru, you cannot think without the form. Whereas in essence, he is formless, totally. So, if ever you use your intellect and mind to think of Brahman, you will end up giving a form to Brahman. Okay? So, don't think in meditation. Don't think of Brahman in meditation. That is why he says, don't be in a rush to respond. Don't be in a rush to respond. Now understand why he says, exist as whatever you have absorbed. Exist 2, 3, 4 days. Just exist and then revert. When you revert after existing, then a para or 6 paragraphs or 10 paragraphs, they will convey to Acharya that you have existed. You cannot think of Brahman and respond. You cannot think of Brahman and meditate. All the thoughts have to necessarily leave you in the Nididhyasana stage. The thinking part, validation part with the intellect, everything is over in Manana. Finish over and out. In the Nididhyasana, it has to be that unqualified, objectless, changeless, motionless Brahman, which you really are. Aham Brahmasmi. Aham Tat Asi. Not Tattvamasi, Aham Tat Asi. To the 4 Mahavakyas, he has added this 5th Mahavakya, Aham Tat Asi. I am that. In the duality between you, the meditator, and Brahman, the meditator, has to go. How it will go? Only if you stop thinking of Brahman and you exist as Brahman. And Maharaj stamps it and says, this is the truth of all truth, Satyasya Satyam, or the supreme Brahman of the Upanishad. That is the goal of all quests. That is the object of meditation. That is the ideal to be attained by one and all. That is the essence of existence. Next. That ultimate reality, next verse. That ultimate reality, which is the support for this world, body, prana, mind, and senses, which is the womb of for the Vedas, Veda, Yonis Tatha, which is all pervading and all permeating, Sarva Vyapaka Sarvahrit Guham, which is colorless, odorless, tasteless, Avarna Arasa Gandha, nameless and formless, Nama Rupa Vivarjitam, that something shines eternally, Shashvata Prakashite. That ultimate reality is a support for the world, even as the sun is a support for the mirage, you may say. The world is a dazzling of eternal consciousness. The nihilists are wrong in saying that nothing exists at all. The world phenomenon cannot be based on nothingness or emptiness. Since Maharaj has quoted about nihilists, we have to understand what is this non-existence, void, or the nihilism all about. Nihilism is the belief that it is totally pessimistic. It is belief that all the values are baseless and that nothing can be known or communicated. It is often associated with extreme pessimism and a radical skepticism that condemns existence. The true nihilists would believe in nothing, have no loyalties, and no purpose other than perhaps an impulse to destroy. Wikipedia definition. Back to the commentary. He is saying, now coming to the non-existence or void, which a sect of Buddhists may not be Buddha, definitely not Buddha. Buddhism has been fragmented into so many ideas post-Buddha. One of them came about with this void or nothinglessness or what is called as Shunyavada. He has given you so many vadas in the creation. Okay? Arambhavada, Parinamavada, Brahma Vivartavada, Ajatavada. So many he has given you. Okay? Srishti, Drishti Srishtivada. So many of them are there. This sect of Buddhism came with Shunyavada. Non-existence is predicated of Atman on account of everything ending in absolute negation or void. They are not condemning Brahman as such, but they reject the concept of Atman. They reject that you and that are one and you are discovering the self within. No. They are talking about Nirvana, but they don't accept the Atman that you are. Because in the Nirvana, they say that it is a state of nothinglessness, Shunya, nothing. Okay. How they would have picked up this concept in some context, there is a story, he's not getting into it. In some context, Buddha said, Sarvam Kshanikam Kshanikam, Sarvam Dukkham Dukkham, Sarvam Swalakshanam Swalakshanam, Sarvam Shunyam Shunyam. He meant this in some context. Everything is temporary, everything is unpleasant, everything is of its own nature, everything is void. This was developed further by few schools of Buddhism when they took the Shunyam seriously. It would have been better if they had taken The Sarvam Shanikam part and progressed in sadhana and discovered the Atman within. But they left all that. They took the last part, Shunyam, seriously. Shunyata is usually translated as devoidness, emptiness, hollowness, voidness. Okay? It is the noun form of the adjective shunya plus ta. Shunya means zero, nothing, empty, void. Ta is the suffix denoting a quality or the state of being equivalent to Englishness. Okay? We say na? Nothinglessness, colorlessness. Okay? So that ness, it is adding to the zero-ness, you can say. Okay? The hollowness, the emptiness. After the Buddha, emptiness was further developed by Abhidharma schools and Nagarjuna, who is a philosopher in Buddhism, and the Madhyamaka school and early Mahayana school. Emptiness is also an important element of the Buddha nature literature, which played a formative role in the evolution of the subsequent Mahayana doctrine. They said it is all nothinglessness. Nirvana means you transcend your mind, you transcend your intellect, you transcend everything, and there is a hollow void. And this, not condemning this, they are all concepts. Okay. In the Sadhana Panchakam, which most of you have left totally, he has given in the previous season, do not argue about anything. Sadhana Panchakam lines are all most practical, maybe at a basic level, but very practical and very rigorous things to be taken in, and then just to just tell to yourself that yes, I will follow this. That builds the edifice for the mansion of Brahmavidya. So this Shunyavada, it had gripped the world, even the Eastern, even Bharat, everywhere. They travel to Sri Lanka, they travel to India and that side, Varanasi and all that side. Since Buddha was there, so this attracted. So nobody has to believe in this thing that I am Atman. That even come to the conviction I am the pure self. It takes several births. Here, this Mahayana school has relieved you of that burden. You just sit, meditate, you cross your mind, intellect, there is some nothinglessness. Very palatable, very, very, very logical. So even everyone started getting attracted to this. And as Swami told Gopalan uncle once in Puttaparthi, that all your Satya Sai speaks books, volumes are getting dust in your shelf. At least if you're not reading, you just dust them once in a while. Like that. The Upanishads, Shrutis, books had gathered dust. Everybody had forgotten Vedanta. Everybody had forgotten the Shrutis. That is how Shankara came. Like a whirlwind, he came, existed in the physical world for 32-36 years and set up four ashram, 4 pithas everywhere and traveled world around throughout India and just relinquished, just removed this void or nothinglessness thing and fought debates and discussions everywhere, and everywhere he like Tufan. That is possible only with the divine power. And when he tells you he is filled, his pores, every pore is filled with that Lord. Believe me. He totally erased this, and then he restored the glory of Advaita Vedanta. Starting from the commentary of Brahma Sutra is all about, okay, initially it talks about Brahman, and towards the third, fourth chapter, it takes the fourth chapter especially, it brings in all the logics, all the beliefs given by all other schools of philosophy, and logically, scientifically, logically, it it refutes all those beliefs, and then attaches and then sticks the stick the vigorous, sincere sadhaka, aspirant, mumukshu leader to one truth, Brahman. Shankara's commentary is the first one authenticated commentary to be found in the world of Mumukshus on Brahma Sutra. Later on, Shivananda Maharaj has given beautifully. He, like a tufan, like a whirlwind, he just went about giving the commentary on Brahma Sutras and authenticated commentary of 10 Upanishads. The commentary, authenticated Upanishads on which Shankara has given commentary are known as major Upanishads by the Westerners. And on that which the 99 or 100 something Upanishads, all the Kaivalya Upanishad, so many Upanishads, they all come under that category, minor Upanishads. Nothing makes them minor. It is just that Shankara has not been. He did not have the time. He had to finish so much within the short span which he knew. So, Shankara devoted some 9 or 10 verses in the second section of Brahma Sutra to tear apart the doctrine of Shunyavada, non-existence given by the section of Buddhists. Except from commentary given by the Brahmarishi Shivananda on a couple of verses from the sacred treatise is taken up in this context. I quote Maharaj. According to the view of Buddhists, a real thing, the world has come to existence out of nothing. But experience shows that this theory is false. A pot, for instance, is never found to be produced without clay. Such a hypothetical production can exist only in the imagination. As you can imagine the child of a barren woman who can never conceive. Hence, the view of Buddhists is untenable and inadmissible. If existence can come out of non-existence, if being can proceed from non-being, then the assumption of special causes would have no meaning at all. Then anything may come out of anything, because non-entity is one and the same for all cases. And then he deals in another Brahma Sutra. It's all 4 words, 5 words, one sutra in the Brahma Sutra. So in the second chapter, the 27th Sutra, Udasena apicha evam siddhi. And thus, if existence should spring from non-existence, then the attainment of the goal by the indifferent Udasenam, it can come from any non-existence, any non-entity. Well, so any indifferent people, any non-active people, any insincere sadhakas, anybody from non-entity, they can come to realize nirvana. They can come to realize that if this was admitted that existence or entity springs from non-existence, lazy, inactive people would also attain their purpose. And Shivanji Maharaj says, rice will grow even if the farmer does not cultivate the field. Jars will shape themselves even if the potter does not fashion the clay. The weaver too will have finished pieces of cloth without weaving. Nobody will have to exert himself in the least, either for going to the heavenly world or for attaining final emancipation, either Kramamukti or for Jivan Mukti. All this is absurd and is not maintained by anybody. Thus, the doctrine of origination of existence or entity from non-existence or non-entity is untenable. Now, let him conclude this. In nutshell, if giving Rishi Moolam, Nadi Moolam, we should not see it is said in Tamil, okay? Without offending the nihilists or those who give the Shunyavada, if we can be more broad in our vision, he is concluding this, then we can say that non-existence, non-reality of anything can be taken as a starting point in spiritual sadhana, and everything is that can be the Advaita, non-dual Advaita that can be taken at the end. So we can take it as the spiritual journey without condemning it, without shouting at it. Argument means it is coming out of your ego. An egoless person can never ever argue about anything in the world. Take it in writing today. He or she can never ever argue about anything in the world, because the arguing ego has been superimposed, pervaded by the supernal love. Whatever a sincere sadhaka can explain or can put forth can only be with love. And if that love fails, he or she is silent. Very, very important point in spiritual sadhana. So, we will go back to the Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya, Jivo Brahmaivanah Para. So the Jagat Mithya can be taken as Shunyavada. Okay, whereas you have to start your spiritual journey, he has always told that you have to start with that and then proceed, holding the handless hand of your Acharya to a state where you are able to experience Brahma Satyam. Shunyavada, let us say, it is not developing the concept of ultimate reality. Let it stay. Okay, we will take it and we will start the spiritual journey from there, and we will leave it with prostrations, with love, not condemning that this is against our. Nothing is your Vedanta, your Advaita Vedanta. You are above Vedanta, you are above Guru Shishya, you are above form, you are above formless, you are above everything. So don't hold on to anything and say this is my school of philosophy, or this is my understanding, or this is my Satya Sai Baba, this is my God, no. There is no mine and thine in Advaita. When duality has to go, all duality has to go. Don't hold on to one duality and to remove all duality. All mine and thine goes, everything goes. You are above board, you are above everything. You are above the 6 schools of philosophy. You are neither existence nor non-existence. It was taught in one of these sessions. You are above everything. Above means above does not fetch you a feather on your cap. You have transcended everything, not above or below. Leave the above expression, that can also breed an ego. You have transcended everything. So Vedanta is more keen to develop this conception almost to perfection. Jivo Brahmaipana Para. No jiva is different from that. All are self-illumined with which we started today's satsang. How beautifully every learning goes and forms a garland, beautiful, where one pearl cannot be differentiated from the other pearl. Every pearl is shining in its pristine glory, and all pearls come together and grant you the Brahma Vidya. And you shine verily as Brahman, Satchidananda Parabrahma. Maharaj continues. We are coming to the end. An appearance demands a reality as its corollary. The world is an expression of Brahman through Maya, even as the body is an expression of Atman through mind. The Brihadaranyaka Upanishad says that one Brahman alone puts on all names, forms, and does all actions in its own beings. Thus, the whole universe is to be understood as a sport of one absolute Maya Nataka Sutradhari, Leela Dhari. Whole universe is to be understood as a sport of the one absolute which seems to play in itself by revealing itself in multifarious forms. Chinmaya stamps the secret of one substratum Brahman as the causeless cause for the entire creation when he writes. He has read the English or the sentence formation, but it may be different because he has read, and he has read so much that it's very difficult for him to go back to the source and then recapture the exact line, but the essence is there. All the essence of all the 10 Upanishads, all the Shankara's treatise, all the Shivanandaji Maharaj, everything went inside as it is, without any contamination of his vasanas due to the grace of his Sadguru Maharaj, Sadguru Bhagavan Shri Satya Sai. Lord of Lord, Rajadiraj Satya Sai Maharaj we sing Baba Sai Baba. Paratipuri के महाराजा मेरे हृदय मंदिर के समर्पण भजन. He's gone to that bhajan in an instant. Bhakti, jnana, karma, everything is within. So it makes no time space to travel from jnana to bhakti and bhakti to jnana because everything is there only all together. What are those lines? O mere Baba Sai Bhakti ke Krishna, Shiva Shakti Avatar, Purna Avatar, Rajadiraj Satya Sai Maharaj Baba, Sai Baba, Baba, Sai Baba, पलतीपुरी के महाराजा है मेरे हृदय मंदिर के राजा. Beautiful, beautiful. How is that Maharaj, Rajadiraj, different from Brahman? He says no difference. Absolutely no difference. So, Chinmaya says, for all ever-changing, ever-fluctuating things in the creation, there has to be one changeless substratum, Adhar, which is the cause. For all drawings to appear, exist, and dance, and and be in joy existing on the pure canvas, the pure canvas has to be the changeless substratum. It is not possible that the pure canvas is also moving and the objects are also moving. It is not tenable. It is not possible. For the creation to exist, it cannot come out of shunya, nothing. There has to be a substratum for the waves to arise, emerge, go high and come down and perish. There has to be the essence substratum water. Without that, how can the wave come? Nirakara. Brahman is formless, for forms belongs to a being which is defined by space. Obviously, two forms can be identified when there is a space. Sadhaka one form, sadhaka two form. When there is no space, where can be the form? Without the time space, with the spacelessness, timelessness in that one form cannot be brought in. Impossible. Absoluteness cannot have form. Form always implies the existence of its possessor in a space-time universe, having something somewhere outside itself. This characteristic does not form the quality of the eternal being. And aligning the form and the formless, Krishnanandji answers to a question. Now only he said, he did not even remember that he is coming to this answer. Partipuri ke Maharaja and Brahman, he said. Now, same question is being, what is the relation between God with form and God formless? Swamiji, Krishnanji. The form is present in the formless, just as the statue is present in the block of stone. You may not see the statue, but the sculptor may have already have an idea about it. All the statues are present in the same block of stone simultaneously. Self-preservation, desire to preserve the ego, personality makes us like certain things which preserve our personality and makes us hate certain other things which seems to go against our personality. He says everything is already there. Already there. That is why the Sakara Brahman Bhagavan Satya Sai Baba already is existing as Brahman. In Brahman, the Sai is there. And Sai has descended for us not to ever get stuck to his form only because the form is gone. If you keep on remembering the form, you will be left only with tears. Remembering on how that body was there, reduced to a 22 kg within that glass this thing on 24th of April, 25th of April 2011. He has descended only to show his grand picture of Brahmanda Nayaka Baba and to take us to his original abode Prashanti as Nirguna Nirakara Brahman. You taste, you experience that Nirguna Nirakara Brahman, you attain self-realization, then it will be like play. It will be like swinging on a jhula. Effortlessly you can come to Sai with form and go back Sai. Because you will not get deluded with the form. You realize that this form is essentially formless. And in that formless, essentially the form is. Right? That's why he wrote in that book Journey, Date with Him. He had given that name long back. He wrote form, worshipping form after self-realization. You don't see the form anymore. You can play with the form. You can cry at the feet of the form. You can laugh at the form. You can dance seeing the form, but still you are not perceiving the form. When we go and stand at the Garbhagriha of the Uchipuliyar in Trichy and worship the Ganapati, we are not worshipping that stone per se. In that stone, are we not able to experience Ganesha? Exactly the same. In the form, you are ever able to experience the formless Brahman. So his Guru, Shivananji Maharaj, stamps Brahman as Nirakara when he writes Ananta Nirakara Nirguna Nirvishesha Adrishta are his negative attributes. Sachidananda Satyam Shantam Jnanam are his direct positive attributes. This is a description of the nature of Atman in Ishavasya Upanishad. Atman pervades all, is resplendent, bodiless, scatheless, having no muscles, pure, untouched by sin, far-seeing, omniscient, transcendent, self-sprung. He duly allotted to the various eternal creatures their respective functions. Mantra 8 of the Ishavasya Upanishad. You may ask any boy the following questions. He will give the answers that will explain the true nature of the imperishables. This is Shivananji Maharaj's beauty. He gives the eternal truth in such a easy form, such a thing. And inspired by Shivananji Maharaj, this servant of yours also attempts to do the same thing. Most difficult, which can be explained over a period of 10 years. He tries his best to make it as easy as possible, and to few blessed sadhakas, he aligns all of them with his own state, day in and day out, and describes so that they are able to catch it direct. Oh boy, what is your name? My name is Ram. Does this name belong to your body or yourself? This name belongs to my body. Whose is this cap? It is mine. If this cap is destroyed, will you also perish? Ram replies, no. If your body is destroyed, will you also perish? Then Ram has to reply, no, I will not perish. My body is like the cap which I am adorning. The cat may go, I remain. The body will perish. The body, what I remain as immortal has to be essentially Nirakara, formless. In the final answer, Swamiji explains to us that the immortal self can have no form, and therefore there is no question of self either being born or perishing. He concludes Swami's one paragraph on his commentary in the Ishavasya Upanishad, Vani. The Atman never undergoes modification, yet it is faster than the mind. There is a verse which is describing faster than the fastest, yet changeless, yet motionless. Ishavasya Upanishad. That is the mystery, and that is the miracle. It appears to experience all states, but it has no growth, decline, or change. Though it is everywhere, it is not perceivable by the senses. It is because of its underlying existence and ever-present immanence that all growth, all activities, all changes take place. Go back to the knowledge, awareness, and with that, the knowledge of ABCD XY is exactly the same thing. Cause and effect act and react on account of the basic substratum of the Atmic reality. Why? The very word Lord, Isha, carries this meaning. The Atma is near and far, inside and outside, still and moving. He who knows this truth is worthy of the name Jnani, spiritually, unquote, Swami. If Swami had given the intuition, it could have so happened that he could have picked up the Upanishad Vahini, like Brahma Sutra, 1 line, 1 sutra, or Ashtavakra Gita, 4 line, and he's pouring 1 hour after. If Swami had given him the intuition, it would have been not that his journey has been less beautiful, but it would have also been beautiful that he had picked up one paragraph of one Upanishad from the Upanishad Vahini, and then keeping that as the sutra, diving deep into all the commentaries of all the that Upanishad of stamped of the masters who are above board, Shivanji Maharaj or Chinmaya. It is just that it did not happen this way. Now also it is beautiful in the other way. How? Because after having gone deep into the commentaries of Shankara and Shiv Maharaj and Chinmayananda on all the Vedantic treatises, and have absorbed and then and realized all of those things through as subjective experience and existing as the essence of Upanishad, and with that, when he goes and gets one paragraph of Swami to give to you as Sai devotees, that beauty, from there to here, here to there, the same thing. From there, when he gives this line, also, all his absorption of all his realization, all his inner experience, everything just erupts like a volcano when he goes through few lines of Swami. He leaves you with the next verse. Same, continuing on the nature of Brahma. Some indescribable supreme principle which is imperishable, unborn, undecaying, anirvachyam tattvam aprameyam, fearless, motionless, one without a second, ancient and infinite, that alone exists. Imagine what Maharaj Krishnanandji Maharaj wrote in the preface on the Moksha Gita. He said, this one Moksha Gita is sufficient. And it is Swami, absolutely it is Swami. Swami Bhagavan gave the intuition to give you Moksha Gita. Otherwise, there were so many thoughtless thoughts on whether he can give Manisha Panchakam or Dakshinamurti Stotram or so many things, or he start with Ishavasya Upanishad. But Swami gave the intuition. This entire Guru Shishya Parampara started from May 2011. It is all every day and day. Each message coming to you, each scolding coming to you, each love being poured to you, each session given to you. Everything is intuitively graced by Bhagavan, his Sadguru, his God. There is not an iota of doubt in that for him. It's up to you to how to treat it now that he has revealed that it is not all coming from Swami through your Acharya. Then how much serious you have to take it. The 5, 6, 7 sadhakas were left now still. How many of you will further go? He doesn't know. Anyways, it's all between Swami and you. He has no role to play on that. He can only serve you. He cannot demand from you. He demands from few where he has hopes that yes, they deserve and they will come up. He doesn't demand from others. He lets go all others. Enjoy. Perhaps this birth is for you to enjoy and ultimately to end all joy, to come back to the source. You will come one day because you are verily that illumined self, but maybe perhaps not this birth. There is still time to end joy, so enjoy. All these things that Guru would give after 3 years or 4 years to a deserving disciple. They are all coming to you served as though in a golden plate with a silver spoon, and Acharya has taken out the Amrita and then he has asked you to open your lips and he has inserted that spoon into your mouth. You have to just drink. So easy, so easy. Sulabharama. Don't make it Durlabharama by not taking. Everything you will get in the world, you will not get by like this. So easy, so easy. Sometimes what happens when you get things so easily unasked for, you don't realize the worth of that. It happens in the world. That is the nature of the world. Hari Om. That's it. Jai Sai Ram. Blessings. Love. Wake up and walk into the world with all its glitter, the attachment, the relations, so on and so forth, the desires, everything. They are waiting to swallow you totally. And you get into them suited and booted, like the shark example. It is natural for you to get swayed into this glittering objective world. And on the other side, this servant of yours, this sevak of yours is begging you, prostrating to you, begging you, literally begging you, literally telling, no, no, that is not going to give you eternal happiness. It is all shunyam, shunyam, dukkham, dukkham at the end. Come here, come here. There is a song sung by students, Sai Naam, लूट सके तो लूट, अंत समय बच जाएगा, जब प्राण तन से जाए छूट. Don't repent in your sick bed, deathbed, that, oh, that stupid person, he was begging us, prostrating to us, and he was giving us. The 40, out of the 40 members in the group, 20 were active, then 18, then 15, then 10 and 6 and 4, now 5 now. He is helpless. He can't do it. Because when one goes as a celibate, like the Maharaj disciples and the Rishikesh Divine Life Society are very easy. Or for Chenya at the Tapovan Ashram in Uttarkashi, very easy to get absorbed, to get realized self, because there is no world at all for them. When they have handed over the summit, they have surrendered to and they have given up the world. As celibates, they have left their parents, they have left the world very easy. But here in this 2021 has started now, today, January 1st. The world has so much to offer you, so much to lure you, so much to distract you. Very difficult, very difficult. Kaviraj Shailendra wrote, आग से जल के बीज और निखरे वह है वही सच्चा सोना. The fire, you take it as this objective world. Going through this fire, even not getting burnt in the fire, still coming out of the fire, then only you shine as Bangar gold. Otherwise, you get lost into the world, into the fire, you get burned and cry at the end. I lost this chance, this year, this birth. ಚಟ್ಟಿ ಸುಟ್ಟ ದಡ, ಕೈ ಬಿಟ್ಟ ದಡ, ಬುದ್ಧಿ ಕೆಟ್ಟ ದಡ, ನೆಂಜೆ ತೊಟ್ಟ ದಡ. You will not even have your husband or wife to sit with you and cry along with you. Everybody will be minding their own business. You sit alone and cry. Is it required? When Brahma Vidya is being given to you in abundance, in wholeness, and he doesn't need anything from you. No prostrations, no pranams, no Guruji. You ask him, Mr. Satyamurthy, you right? He doesn't need anything from you in the mission. And he is very sincere. If he is not sincere, let his lips, let his tongue get cut. He is very sincere. He doesn't need anything from you. He wants you to evolve spiritually and realize the purpose of your life. That's it. That is the mission his master, his God has given. You may not remember him at all, but take up whatever he's teaching you, because it is all coming from the source. He can beg. The beggars sometimes do not attract your attention. You loathe them, you discard them. Chal, Vikari. So you're living like that.